Hi, I'm Graeme, Chief Exec of SCMA. We are really aware that many of you are becoming more concerned by the day about the impact of current restrictions on blended care. We continue to be really active on your behalf, and I'm going to give you a short update about where we are and where we're going with this just now. A few days after I last updated you, the Scottish Government announced that it would now be possible to plan for the full-time return of schools from the 11th of August if we continue to make progress in suppressing the virus. This was really significant, as up until then all of the planning for schools and childcare returning had been based on school pupils perhaps only returning 1 or 2 days a week initially, and even then on a small group model, with much reduced capacity in classes and minimising contact between small groups. From our point of view, the school's announcement changed everything. If hundreds of people are going to be allowed to return to the local schools, lots of different sectors are reopening over the summer, and it's also anticipated there'll be much wider mixing in the community by then, it's hard to see how current restrictions on childcare could be maintained or justified once the schools go back. SCMA has continued to be involved in contributing constructively to national discussions about recovery and representing the needs of childminders and the families you support. We are very aware that you have been receiving significant and increasing demand from parents who need to know as soon as possible what childcare options will be available when the schools go back, and in particular if blended care will be allowed then. We're aware that almost 50% of childminders in Scotland deliver blended care, and that many more were expecting to do so within the next year in response to parental demand for flexible childcare. The school's announcement was welcome for a number of reasons, but in particular as it provided parents with advanced clarity of intent as to where we hope to be with schools after the summer. Yes, we knew this was still subject to progress in suppressing the virus, but it provided a real clarity of direction which schools and parents could plan for. We believe that similar advanced clarity of intent is desperately required for childcare, and we have impressed this on the Scottish Government of the urgency and of the importance of providing this for parents, for childminders, for other childcare providers to support your planning. On Friday night, new guidance was published to enable out-of-school care settings to also reopen in Phase 3 from the 15th of July. Now, while this is not for childminders, it was of much interest to us, as you'll be aware, much of out-of-school care is largely based on a blended model involving school and a childcare setting. The out-of-school care guidance makes clear that blended placements will largely not be permitted in out-of-school care settings as well at this time. Now, it's interesting to note that there's been a slight softening of the language. In our current childminding guidance, which was developed for reopening in Phase 1, blended placements are only allowed where they're the only option to support critical childcare. The guidance for out-of-school care settings reopening from the 15th now states that blended placements should only take place where necessary to support critical childcare. So there's been a little movement, but nowhere near enough to support childminding and the families you care for. The out-of-school care guidance also notes that the guidance on blended placements will be reviewed and updated by 30th of July to ensure alignment with the guidance that will underpin the return to school. As such, the current restrictions on blended care are expected to remain in place across all childcare providers over the next few weeks, and no clarity has been provided as to if the restrictions on blended care will be lifted before the schools go back or not. Now, we recognise how hugely frustrating and challenging this is for you and the families you support. 4 weeks waiting for an update when you and the families you support need to make arrangements now is a very long time. What we all need is clarity about what forms of childcare it is hoped can be provided to parents when schools go back, if we continue to make progress in suppressing the virus. Now, this is not an unreasonable expectation or request. Such clarity has already been provided for schools, and we believe it's now needed for childcare. And while we recognise the very real challenges of trying to look ahead at this time, we are disappointed that clarity of intent to remove restrictions on childcare has not yet been provided, as it was for schools a few weeks ago. We're being responsible in that we support the need to follow public health advice at this time. None of us want to risk the progress that has been made in suppressing the virus. However, in addition to considering the public health advice, and as the risks reduce, there is also an increasing need to take into account the wider economic and social impact of the virus on families and childcare providers. We know from your contact that this is becoming more critical to you by the day, and we've been receiving reports from members around the country who are losing families as a result of not being able to confirm if you'll be able to provide blended care when the schools go back. Some of you don't know if you'll have any families after the summer due to the current restrictions. As such, the longer we don't have clarity, the greater the risk this has to the future viability of your business, and it also risks reducing parental choice over types of childcare which will be available. This is why we surveyed our members last week to capture data on your current experiences. Many thanks to those of you who responded. 1,300 of you did. We really appreciate you taking the time to complete our surveys and recognising how important this is to you and the families you support. Within SCMA, we worked over the weekend to analyse the results of these surveys. What I can tell you today is that the results are compelling and demand action. We now have some very powerful data providing evidence of the effect of current restrictions on blended care on your businesses, including the number of families you have already lost. In addition, we have some very powerful information about the extent that you believe this will affect the future viability of your businesses. We will feed these results into ongoing national discussions with the Scottish Government and other stakeholders, and we'll update you in a couple of days about our plans for taking this further and how you can get involved. So to be clear, the current childminding guidance remains in place at this time. This is being reviewed at the moment to ensure that it is consistent with the guidance for nurseries and out-of-school care settings from 15th of July. This update is expected to be published by the end of next week. As we've done throughout this outbreak, we will continue to keep you updated, and we will inform you as soon as the new childminding guidance is published and about what it says. Realistically, given the statement in out-of-school care guidance last week about blended placements and are being reviewed at the end of July, we're not expecting any change on this in the updated childminding guidance coming through this week. Finally, we don't underestimate how difficult and stressful the current situation is for many childminders. The COVID-19 outbreak has caused anxiety and uncertainty for us all, with many experiencing financial pressures and making considerable adjustments to our working and home life and routines. Within SCMA, we also recognise that the majority of childminders are sole workers and that this can be isolating. Most of you don't have the benefit of a team of colleagues to share your experiences with, and in addition to supporting the families and the needs of the children that you care for, running your business and finding the time to further your own professional development and learning, many of you also have your own families and pressures. During COVID-19, these pressures have only intensified, with many of you reporting financial concerns, worrying about the future of your business, wondering if it's safe to open, in addition to balancing your family's changing needs. We are committed to doing all that we can to support our members throughout these difficult times on both a professional and personal level. And this is why we've taken a decision to invest further in our members at this time. All members should have received an email from us last week providing information about a new wellbeing service which we are providing for SCMA members. I'm pleased to report that we've linked up with Health Assured to arrange for all members to be able to access a confidential support line staffed by trained counsellors. This will provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, access to non-judgmental and a safe space to talk about your worries, whether they're financial, family or other. Please use this service. We've put it in place for you. Stay well.